people of Reddit. Today I would like to share with all of you how I found out that my fiancé was cheating on me just weeks before we got married. I ended my engagement with her after that. I, male 35, was engaged to my fiancé, F, 33 years for 3 years. We were set to get married in June this year. Me and my ex-fiancé had been together for more than 2 years. We went to the same college and knew each other from there. We weren't really friends or in the same group in college. We just knew each other, like acquaintances. It was after college was long over and I was already working in Wall Street that we met again at a friend's party, that we reconnected and started dating after some time. After 2 years of being together, I thought it was time to make it official, and then I proposed to her to marry me. My fiancée was working with her friend at a thrift store temporarily. She wasn't interested in working after marriage. I proposed to her to marry me when I thought I was financially ready to take care of my family and bear its responsibilities. Everything was going great. We were already living together and were all set to get married till I realized that something was with my fiancée. She stopped being her usual self. She used to make excuses every time I tried to get close to her. We stopped being intimate as she always made some excuses. She always said something about having too much stress as the wedding date was getting closer or having a headache. It did seem weird to me, but I told her it's fine. When I tried to talk to her about it, she told me it's the stress from the wedding preparations. It seemed reasonable. I discussed this with my friends on our guys' night. Many of my friends were married, some even had children. They told me that their wives had also started acting differently before their wedding as well. Apparently, it was common for brides to feel all giddy and panicky. This made me feel a bit better, and I let it go then. I wanted to help my fiancé with the preparations, but I had gotten a very important project at work, and I had to put all my focus on it. My promotion was dependent on this project. I told her that I felt bad that she had to do everything by herself. She told me it's fine, and besides, she had the help of my best friend. Yeah, so my best friend M35 was helping out my wife with the wedding preparations. We had been best buds since our school days, and he had been close friends with my fiancé as well. He was also my best man for the wedding. I was grateful that he got along with my fiancé really well. I didn't want that dynamic where my best friend and fiancé didn't like to see each other's faces. My best friend was going through a bad breakup at that time. His long-term girlfriend had dumped him over a call for someone she found on her vacation. It sucked big time. I thought that sitting alone at the house he shared with his ex-girlfriend could be hard to handle. The wedding preparations were a good way to keep his mind occupied. I was so ecstatic about getting married to the woman of my dreams that everything seemed perfect. Even putting long hours at work didn't seem to exhaust me, because I wasn't doing all this hard work just for me, but for my future family as well. I started noticing the signs that something was wrong at that time. Even though I was working long hours at work, it was my fiancée who would get home late. Even later than me, and I was already coming home late. I asked her where she was going all the time. She made some vague excuse as to how shopping is hard for a bride. "You won't get it," she had told me. I believed her at the time because in my head, I couldn't imagine her lying to me. Even though I tried to believe what she told me, something inside me told me that she's not telling me the whole truth. One day, it was a Sunday, and I had thought of spending the whole day with her without any work or distractions. But she had told me that she's going for a dress fitting. My fiancée was in the shower and her phone was in the bed. Her phone kept getting continuous notifications. I was sleeping, but I woke up due to continuous vibrations. I took her phone to see who's texting her so much. We both had Face IDs on each other's phones and also knew each other's passcodes. However, her phone didn't recognize my face. I then put her passcode, but it said the wrong passcode. That threw me off. We had shared our passwords with each other soon after we started dating. We never saw it as much of a big deal. And now when we are so close to getting married, she has changed her passcode. When she came out of the shower and saw her phone in my hand, she panicked for a second but quickly composed herself. I asked her why she changed her password. She seemed surprised by my direct question. She took a second to reply and then told me it's because there are pictures of her wedding dress and she doesn't want me to see that before the wedding day. Her excuse seemed plausible at the time, but I kept thinking that I never checked her phone anyways. She could have just told me this instead of changing her passcode. It was a small thing, but it was there in the back of mind all day. The next day while I was at work, my fiance's best friend called me. She told me that she couldn't reach my fiancé and they were getting late for the dress fitting appointment. I told her that she must be at home only. I asked her if they had the appointment the previous day. She replied to me like I was asking her a ridiculous question. The store was closed yesterday. She then hung up the call, telling me that my fiancé had replied to her back. I was sure now that my fiancé was hiding something for me. She had definitely lied to me about going to her dress fitting appointment. Now I just had to find out what she was lying to me about. I thought that I wasn't going to ask her directly because I didn't want another bullshit reason fed to me again. I was still at work when I got a call from my best friend. The best friend who was helping out my fiancé with the wedding. He didn't call me much anymore, so it was quite a surprise to get a call from him. He was either at his office when I called him or helping my fiancé with some wedding stuff. He started talking to me, asking me how I was doing and all. I told him I was fine and asked him what's going on with him. We talked for a bit, and then he asked me if something was wrong. I contemplated if I should tell him or not about my fiancé's lie, but then went ahead with telling him about it. I told him how she told me that she was going to Atelier, but then her best friend called today and said that they have the appointment today instead of yesterday. "Oh bro, you're getting worried over nothing," he told me. I asked him how he was so sure, and then he told me that yesterday my fiancé had gone for the dress fitting for the dress she was wearing at the dress rehearsal, and today's appointment was for the wedding dress. I still didn't know if I should believe him or not. I asked him how he's so sure about the truth. He said that he knew as he was helping my fiancé with the wedding preparations, and that they were constantly in touch about everything related to the wedding. I believed him and even felt guilty for doubting my fiancé. My best friend's explanation seemed reasonable. He was talking more with my fiancé than he was talking to me. It was logical that he knew what was actually going on. I released a breath of relief and then got back to my work. Everything went fine for days after that. My fiancé was still acting differently, but it was the wedding stress. She had told me various times that everything will be fine. One day I told my fiancé that I'll get home late as I had a client meeting over dinner. She didn't seem disappointed or sad about the fact that I won't be home. She just told me, okay. However, the client meeting got rescheduled to the next day. When I went home, my fiancé wasn't there. It was already late. I called her up and asked where she was. She then lied to me and told me that she's at home only. She kept talking about how she missed me and was waiting for me to get back home. I heard her lying to me as I looked for her in the whole house. She finally asked me when I would get home. I told her I was already home and waiting for her. I then hung up the call. She got home within half an hour. I made a mental note to remember that she was within that distance. I wasn't going to trust whatever she told me now. My fiancé didn't come back empty-handed. She got all the groceries and stuff. I didn't even have to ask her to explain to me what had happened. She started explaining to me herself how she was going to cooking classes. She told me she was learning cooking as a surprise for me. That's why she didn't tell me that she wasn't at home. I told her that she need not lie to me for such small things. I told her that as my partner, I expect complete honesty from her. She nodded and then came and hugged me. I hugged her back, but my guards were up now. I tried to kiss her, but she turned her head and said that she should put the groceries in the refrigerator. I knew something was up with my fiancé, and I made it my goal to find out what. There were too many things to ignore. The lie she told me today, the lie she told me the other day, also how she changed her passcode. It wasn't making sense at all, but I was determined to find out the reason behind all this. That night, I laid down on my bed thinking about all the various reasons as to why my fiancé was lying to me. None of them really made sense except one. She was cheating on me. I felt a bit guilty for doubting the woman who was going to be my wife in a few weeks. But there was another thought as well. I should find out whatever is going on before our marriage. It would be a disaster if my suspicion comes true after we get married. I didn't want a life like that. I thought about sharing this with my best friend, but for some reason thought it was best if I didn't. He was already going through a bad breakup. Listening to my suspicion wouldn't be good for his mental health. I decided that I'm going to find out what's going on alone. It was better not to tell anyone, because if it turned out that there was nothing to worry about, which I was really hoping for, I didn't want to trouble anyone for nothing. I started keeping an eye on my fiancé's activity. I checked the CCTV camera placed outside our home to see who all were coming to my house in my absence. The CCTV camera didn't give out anything. It was my fiance living in the house shortly after I left for work and then getting home really late. I already knew that without the help of CCTV. I kept thinking as to what could help me more, but nothing came to my mind. I could have used her phone, but she had changed the passcode. There was only one option left. It was to follow her and see where she was going. It seemed a little too much to me, but I needed to find out the truth before our marriage, so I decided to follow her around. The next day, I told her that I was leaving for work. I left the house but didn't go to work. Instead, I parked my car a few lanes ahead of our house and waited for her to leave the home. I kept checking the front camera to see when she left the home. As soon as she left the house, I started following her, but keeping a lot of distance between my cars and hers so she doesn't get to know. She went to the thrift store and stayed there for a while before going to the florist. After that, she went back home. I felt like an idiot for doubting her when she was doing the normal things only. But those things she did were still stuck in my head. I thought that just because she didn't do anything different doesn't mean there isn't something. It'll just take time to figure it out. I thought I'll follow her for another day or two, and if I still couldn't find anything, then I would let the suspicion go. Finally, everything was fine when I got back home that evening. I repeated the same thing the next day. My fiance didn't do anything out of the ordinary that day as well. I knew something was wrong, but she was not doing any different these 2 days. I got the suspicion that maybe she knew that I was following her, but I quickly shunted it out of my head. I haven't told this to anyone, and I also made sure that there was enough distance when I followed her car. The third morning, I got a call from my best friend regarding my bachelor's party. I told him I was good with whatever he liked to plan. There was a lot of sound in his background, some very loud songs. I knew it was an old Spanish song. I couldn't ask him where he was as I got another call from work. I had to urgently go to the office for some work. I thought that there wasn't much point in following my fiancée around anyways. She was doing the same things in her routine only. I went to the office and did some work. I got a call from our jeweler who was making our wedding rings. He told me that wife still hasn't given her ring size. They didn't have her number, so they called me. I then called my wife to ask her for her ring measurement. What surprised me as soon as she picked up the call was that in the background, loud old Spanish songs were playing. I asked her where she was, and she told me that she was with her best friend. Her best friend, not mine. I told her what the jeweler had said. She said that she'll go to the store in the evening and will give her ring measurement to them. I ended the call, but something wasn't sitting right. Maybe it was a coincidence that I heard loud old Spanish songs in the background of my fiancé and my best friend. But I didn't think it was a mere coincidence. I called up my best friend again and asked him where he was. He told me he had come to a cafe for a client meeting. My friend worked in an event management company. That's why he offered to help out my fiancé. However, when I heard a high-pitched laugh background, I knew who that laugh belonged to. My fiancé. The laugh immediately got silent. My friend made some excuse as to how he got to go and ended the call quickly. My fiancé nor my best friend had any reason to lie to me if they were together. I knew they used to hang out together regarding weddings and stuff. So why did they lie to me? I think in my subconscious, I knew the answer. I just didn't want to accept so quickly. I decided to keep quiet until I have something substantial to call them out. Instinctively, I didn't go directly to my house after work that evening. Instead, I went to my best friend's place. His car wasn't there. I checked the time. It was 6:00 then. I went to my house then. I checked the time when I got home, realizing it took me only 23 minutes to get home from his place. The night my fiancée told me she was coming from cooking class, it took her the same amount as well. At this point, I just knew that both of them were lying to me. I just needed to see from my eyes to confirm my suspicion. I went inside my house and my fiancé wasn't still here. I got freshened up and kept thinking about what's happening in my life. I was about to get married and my fiancé was cheating on me, and that too with my best friend. I still had a small hope that all my fears would go to vain and my suspicion would turn out to be wrong. I really hoped for it to be wrong. The next day, I again followed my fiancé. She still went to the thrift store like she normally did. She did all her usual stuff, and just as I was getting frustrated for not being able to come to any evidence, I saw my best friend entering the thrift store. This still didn't prove anything. Maybe he was just visiting to help her out with the marriage stuff. He came out of the thrift store after 45 minutes. I still have nothing substantial to either confirm or deny my doubt. It was really getting frustrating. The next morning, I was having breakfast, but then remembered that I had forgotten my file in the bedroom. I went to get it and saw my fiancée getting dressed after her shower. I was just passing by her when my attention fell on the hickey on her shoulder blades. It sure as fuck wasn't me who gave her that, because it's been more than a month since we got intimate with each other. I stopped by her. She seemed surprised as I stopped there. I traced my finger on the hickey. She shivered. It was the scary kind. I didn't even have to ask her who did it. She started her explanation on her own. You know, yesterday I was wearing off-shoulder tops and an insect bit me there. It hurt a lot yesterday. I told her that it doesn't seem like an insect. She got scared at that and started telling me more lies as to how it really was an insect and all. I didn't say anything after that and just got more determined to find out some bloody evidence against that, so I can finally confirm my suspicion. The first thing I did, as I got in my car, was to check the CCTV recording of the previous day. True to what I had thought, my fiancée wasn't wearing an off-shoulder top the previous day. I saw her getting in the car in some dress which fully covered her shoulder. Even though it was turning out to be completely useless, I spent that day as well following my fiancé around. I finally got something that day. I saw my fiancé going straight to my best friend's house. I saw him coming out and hugging her. They went inside and stayed there for almost the whole day. I knew that if I went there, my doubt would get confirmed and I'd find them in bed with each other. Instead of ringing the doorbell, I used the extra key my friend had given me long ago for emergencies. He had my house's extra key as well. I opened the door silently and went inside. I saw my fiancé's purse lying on the couch in the living room. I followed the way where the noise was coming from. I took light steps so I didn't make any sound and finally reached the bedroom. I could hear their voices clearly. My fiancé was telling him how I almost caught her today. You know, he saw the hickey. We have to be more careful from now. My best friend hummed something, and after that, all I could hear were sexual sounds. I opened the door very slowly and saw my fiancé in bed with my best friend. I took a photo of them with my phone and then shut the door. I had reached the living room when the door of the bedroom opened again and my fiancé came out laughing. I turned to look at her and her smile vanished as soon as she saw me. She was wearing my best friend's shirt and nothing else. She stood there frozen, and my best friend who followed her out also got frozen as soon as he saw me. I was so angry that I couldn't think anything straight. I just went and punched my best friend in the jaw. I told my fiancé that I didn't want to see her face ever again and stormed out of his house. I went straight home rather than going to work. I had no fucking energy for going to work. Even though I had my suspicion, this betrayal stung. My best friend and my woman. Just as I was getting out of my car, my fiancé had also reached home. I told her to get out of my property, but she didn't listen and followed me inside. She was in tears as she begged me to listen to her. I knew that nothing she could say would make it okay for what they had done. But I thought, why not? Let's hear this. I told her to speak. She first went into shock, wondering how I agreed, but then started telling me. All this started when she started planning our wedding. After my best friend's breakup, she said that she was just consoling him as he was really low because of the breakup, and then one thing led to another and they started kissing. It never meant to be anything more. I was just helping him and moving on, she said while crying. The audacity of this woman. You were helping him move on by sleeping with him. I spat in a harsh tone. She got tensed at my voice but then started telling me how sorry she was and would do anything to make me forgive her. She told me how we had our whole life in front of us, and I cannot let it go because of one mistake she had made. The more she kept speaking, the angrier I got. She was telling me to let go of her cheating like it was nothing. I had told her how important loyalty was to me, and still she did that. I thanked my luck that I found this out before the wedding. Something came to my mind then. I could easily end our relationship right now and tell everyone that the wedding is off. The wedding was in 5 days. Or I could make her and my best friend actually suffer for the betrayal. I decided to go with the second one. I let my fiancée beg some more. She kept telling me how everything can be perfect from now on. She told me this is our chance to turn a new leaf and start our dream life together. I let her convince me about how I should not cancel anything and to let loose in the bachelor party. She told me that it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. All our guests were coming before so they could attend the bachelor party as well. I thought it was perfect, and then agreed to not cancel anything. She couldn't believe that this was happening. She must have thought that there was no chance that I could forgive her for cheating, and she was right about that. She was just going to find out later what I did with cheaters. The day of the bachelor party came and I met my best friend again. He insisted that he came to my house instead of the club we were going to. As soon as he entered the house, he started telling how sorry he was and how he didn't mean to ruin my relationship with my fiancée. I told her it was okay, and I forgave them. I told them that everyone made mistakes. I was giving them another chance. I went to the venue with him and met my other friends. Noon knew that I was faking it here and had no intention to actually do this or whatever. I acted like I was having the time of my life here. That night, I kept thinking about their betrayal. My fiancée was staying at her parents' house till the wedding, and that was for the good only. I didn't think I could see her face and not think about her betrayal. My thoughts went to the day he called me up and told me that she was going for the dress rehearsal dress fitting. He lied to me because she was with him, and they must have known that I had talked to her best friend and knew that the store was closed. I had decided that I was going to end everything over the dinner so everyone knew what had actually happened and why the wedding was being called off. My fiancée was coming with her parents to dinner. I reached the venue earlier and talked with the staff to arrange a projector for me. The guests started arriving. Everyone in our immediate families and our closest friends were present for the dinner. Nuan knew, but I had told the officiant to come a bit late. My fiancée started panicking about the officiant not being there, but I smiled at her and told her that it's fine. I then said to everyone that to pass while the officiant gets here, I had to share something with everyone. Someone in the wedding party said that I can wait to make the toast later, but I said that I wanted to do it then itself. I began my speech by telling everyone how I met my fiancée and how my relationship had been so perfect. My fiancée looked at me with tears while she smiled at me. She was smiling because she didn't know what was coming for her. I told her that I'm really grateful for everything she had done for me throughout. I told everyone how she had always prioritized me and my family first. I told everyone that she is the most thoughtful woman. She thought so much about others that she started sleeping with my best friend just to help him move on. As soon as I said that line, everyone got tense. My fiancée got frozen on her spot. There was pin-drop silence in the hall as I moved my attention to my then best friend. I told everyone how we have been best friends since school. I shared a memory of how in school we punched a guy because he asked out my best friend's then girlfriend. "You really were like a brother to me," I said, looking him in the eye as I took my phone out and displayed the picture I took that day in the projector. Everyone gasped as they saw my fiancée and my best friend in bed naked together. I turned to look at my fiancée, but she was facing the floor. I then went to her and told her to never come in front of me again. I asked for my ring back. I didn't really care about the ring, but I didn't want this woman to have that piece of commitment from me. She gave it to me with shaky hands. I told her that I had already called the movers to move her stuff, so she better not enter my property ever again. Everyone was whispering things to each other while others were staring at us. I thanked everyone for coming and then told them that the wedding is over. Nuyun was shocked at this. Everything that went down, it was obvious that the wedding was not going to take place. I told her that I'll send her the bill for everything. She was shocked at this. I just shrugged and told her that she wasn't responsible anymore. Her infidelity was the reason we were calling off the wedding, so it was obvious that she was going to pay for it. With that, I exited the hall and never looked back either at my fiancée or at my best friend. They didn't try to convince me this time to let things go or for any other shit. The movers came in the next day and took away all her stuff. I made sure that nothing of hers was left behind so she could have any excuse to come back to my place. I didn't have to send her the bills. The vendors communicated to her directly since she handled everything about the wedding, and she didn't have the face to send those bills to me. I blocked her from all social media platforms, including her number. I didn't want any negativity from her in my life. I continued my life with my head held high, whereas someone told me that my ex-fiancée couldn't meet anyone's eyes and therefore had gone to another state to live with her cousins for some days. My best friend never tried to contact me either after that day. He sent my house keys to me through our mutual friend. Everyone knew about their betrayal and no one was talking to them. They were facing the consequence of their own karma. I can't help it. I'm just living my life knowing that I was faithful to my fiance and a good friend to my best friend. I didn't deserve what they did to me. I'm taking therapy sessions to move on from this and lead a happy life. Thank you to all of you for listening till here. Update. So, it's been 6 months since I last posted and close to a year since I called off my wedding. I got to know through a mutual friend that my ex-fiance started dating my best friend, yeah, the one she slept with. They started officially dating 2 months after the wedding was called off. They were happy initially, but as soon as other people got to know, they became the topic of gossip. They started having problems as well, and that's when my ex-best friend started cheating on her with someone from his office. She got to know this some months later. She broke up with him after that. As soon as I got to know this, I thought of sharing this with all of you here since I have shared everything else already. Update. Hello everyone, it's been 2 years since I posted about finding out that my fiance cheated on me with my best friend. So as in my last update, I shared that she broke up with him as well. After breaking up with him, she tried to contact me again. Since she was blocked everywhere she approached me at this party, she started telling how it seems fitting to ask for my forgiveness in a party since everything began with a party as well. LOL. I laughed at her and told her that even if she was the last person on the planet, I wasn't getting with her ever again. She got quite embarrassed as I was standing with a group of people and everyone started laughing after that. She quickly ran away and never tried to approach me again. My best friend or ex-best friend also tried to approach me after their breakup. He told me that he didn't come earlier because he thought it was best to give me space. He started telling me how my friendship was the most important thing to him. He told me that it meant more to him than any girl would ever mean. I asked him if that was the case, why did he date my ex-fiance after I called off the wedding? He knew I wouldn't like that. He was shocked at that. He thought I didn't know about them. I laughed at him and told him that I knew everything. I just didn't care. I told him I don't want friends like him in my life anymore. As far as I'm concerned, therapy helped me a lot. I have learned that I cannot carry the burden of others' mistakes on my shoulder forever. I've started to let things go. The betrayal I went through doesn't hurt so much now. I'm also quite happy with my life now. I got the promotion at work for which I was working really hard. I have some actual good friends who helped me when I felt extremely low. My family has also been really helpful. I tried to stay at my home, but there were too many memories with my ex-fiancé, so I decided to sell it off and move to another property. My friends and family helped me settle in here. Shifting finally feels like the starting of a new phase in life. I'm also seeing this beautiful woman from my work now. She knows everything that has happened to me. She is extremely understanding. We are taking things really slow now, but who knows, with time, I will find out that she's the one for me. I'm just taking my time with things. It's hard for me to trust people completely, but I'm trying. I was heartbroken after the betrayal, but time actually heals everything. At that time, I had thought, I won't date anyone ever again, but look at me now. I take everything that happened to me as more of a lesson to never trust anyone too much. People can always deceive us. Another thing this has taught me is that we should be sure about people like life partners and all. My fiance wanted to marry me because it was going to give her a comfortable life, whereas I had thought that it was love from both sides. I turned out to be wrong there. She knew that if she married me, I'd take full responsibility for her. That was the biggest reason why she wanted the wedding so bad and even came to me after her breakup again. Anyways, thank you for all the support you have shown through comments. It means a lot to me. If you have or are going through something similar like I did, please believe when I say that time actually helps in healing every wound. Hey guys, I messed up. I lost the only man I've ever loved due to my selfish ideas. I hate that I hurt him, but even worse, I hate that he left. I wished he had stayed so we can work through my mistakes. I wished he had corrected me instead of walking away. I'm disappointed at the choices I made. I had a friend, a caring partner, a gem of a husband, and I chose to burn it all on a stick for some meaningless sex. I was 19 when I met my husband. He was 21. We met at a library. I had never been in a relationship before him, never even gone on dates. I was quite kept to myself, and because I was in uni to learn, I didn't want to get carried away. He first approached me at the shelves. said the usual, "I've been seeing you around and I think you're beautiful. I want us to get to know each other. Can I have your digits?" I turned him down clean, immediately. I didn't want to give him my number. I didn't want to know anybody in the school. I just wanted to breeze in and breeze out with my degree. Over the next few months, he would walk over to the table where I was with my friends and take a sit. He usually came with a novel, but sometimes he wouldn't and would spend time engaged in conversations with my friends. It wouldn't take long before I got accustomed to seeing him every day, watching him watch me as I read and seeing him talk gracefully with my friends. One day, he didn't show up. I was worried. I asked my friends who we always sat together at the library if they knew anything, but they all said nothing. The only one who answered me said, "You know his life does not revolve around you, right? He's probably tired of waiting on you and has gone back out." I didn't know why those words hurt me then, but I knew later down the line. It was because I was slowly falling for him and being told he might have moved on hurt. I didn't see him the next day also. I asked my friends if they had got his number, so I would reach out to him. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he was at a hospital or something. But they all told me that none of them took his number because I specifically asked them not to. Weird, right? The day after that, he came again, as he always did, walked in with his boys, bade them goodbye, and walked straight to the shelves. He picked up a CIT 301 textbook from the shelves and walked towards us. I still remember what course it was, because that was the first time I actually cared to see what books he read. "Hey, what happened to you? Didn't see you 2 days in a row," I said as he sat down at our table. "Oh, she speaks," he responded as the table burst out laughing. "I am actually being serious, I didn't see you for 2 days. I was starting to get worried," I said as I took off my glasses. I looked him dead in the eyes for, I think, the first time ever in however long the semester was. He stared back at me, first surprised, then he smirked. He was really handsome, almost like a cartoon character. I wondered why it took me that long to see it. He had an average build, which he made up for with his profound gorgeousness. He had these blue eyes that one would get lost in, and for someone who stood at a mere 5'9", he had a tall personality. He had a very deep, raspy voice. I remember holding him when he spoke sometimes, because his voice vibrated every part of my body. It was silly, but it was silly things like that that I miss right now. "You, worried about me?" he said after the pause. "I would believe you, but I'm not even sure you know what my name is," he added. "Stanley," I said immediately. My friends at the table laughed again. "You see, you don't even know my name," he said as he started laughing also. "That's a nickname I got from junior high that followed me all the way here. Besides, it's not Stanley, it's Stan Lee, like the owner of Marvel Comics," he added. He got up and changed tables. He sat alone. I'd never seen him sit at the library before he started to move to me, and never have I seen him alone, ever. I felt like I heard him because I didn't know his name and I felt bad that I heard him. I kept looking at him from time to time, biting my nails and hoping he'd come back to our table or at the least even look back at me. He spent the next 3 hours buried in the books he got from the shelf. Exams were close, so it was understandable that he'd do so, but somehow I felt I was the reason why he had to divert his attention elsewhere. "If you miss him that bad already, you should go talk to him," my friend Sophia said to me. "Go talk to him? No way." I put my glasses back on and went back to my books. I already understood a lot of the things in that book, and that was my last bus stop in exam preparations, so I just kept flipping through it, contemplating if I really should go talk to him. I gave in, stood up, and walked towards the table where he sat. "Come back, I'm sorry," I said, in what he went on to describe as the cutest, anime-type apology ever. He looked up at me, raising an eyebrow, the way he did when he wanted someone to repeat something. I sat down at the table in front of him. It was hard to start a conversation, and he noticed, so he told me it was nothing. He wasn't angry at me or anything, although he wasn't happy that I didn't know his name. He told me that he went to sit alone because he had a test to prepare for. He said the lecturer was strict and was tight-fisted with his grading. He told me he needed to pass the course if he didn't want to be held back an additional year. Then he added that he would have stayed at the table, but figured he'd spend his time looking at me rather than reading. "Okay, so what's your name then?" I asked. He put the book down and looked at me, all smiles. "Danielle, meet Daniel," he said, as he reached out for a handshake. I always thought Danielle and Daniel to be the best couple name. I still do. I just don't know why I blew this up. I got up to leave. He reached for my hand. I remember being shook to the core. Lol. "If you'd like to be somewhere other than here, I'd like to take you out tomorrow after my test," he said. I was really happy deep down that he asked me on a date. I knew if he had done so earlier, I most likely would have stonewall declined him. But here I was flustered, having butterflies in my tummy for this young man. To be sincere, I wish I had a time machine. I would have done a lot of things differently. I would have listened to him, would have put more effort into making him happy. I would have been less selfish. Now here I am, seeking some sort of sympathy from strangers while I cry and reminisce on the good times I shared with my Daniel. We went on the date, and it was splendid. He was very funny, had a lot of things to say, a lot of meaningful things. He was charismatic, and I loved how the girls had a jealous look in their eyes when they saw us together. He told me on the date that he was runner-up Mr. UCLA, and in my head, I was like, rightfully so, because there weren't many guys who were better looking than he was. Our relationship, whilst we were at UCLA, was crazy. Something out of high school romance novel. He was always invited to parties, and when he went, he'd always walk hand in hand with me. We were inseparable and were crowned most influential couple in his last semester in school. Mostly because of him, I must say. Because no one really knew me before we started dating. He was my first everything. First date, first kiss, first love, first everything. I wasn't for him. Everything we ever did, he had done before. Except get married. He was cool with me, always took his time to explain things I didn't understand, and was slow to anger. I was a stupid lady. I always compared our sexual experiences, and I was a bit dissatisfied that he was the only number on my own roster. I wanted to have bragging rights. I thought I was being sensible, and that me wanting to sleep with other people to even the playing field was reasonable. Months after we got married, I started to bring up the idea of us opening up our marriage. I had initially tried putting the idea out there, but the way he shut it down made me feel like I would legitimately lose him if I went ahead. I remember asking him one day what his response was going to be like if we opened things up a little bit. I didn't expect his simple and straightforward answer of, "I'll walk the fuck out, no questions asked." I felt mad. I felt like he was trying to restrict me when he already had his fun outside before we got together. I waited a few months and asked him again, and he gave me the same answer. This was what made me decide that I was going to wait till after we got married. I thought that he would get to see things from my point of view if we tied the knot. When we finally got married, I decided to try again. I must admit that this was very selfish of myself, getting married to him because I wanted to explore my sexuality without losing the man I love. I finally got to tie him down, so now I could do what I wanted. I wished I had listened to understand when he told me how he felt about it. His words all fell on deaf ears, and now I hate myself for letting my one true love go. They say opportunity comes but once, and I know I've lost the one chance I have at being loved for who I am. I know this now, many years after losing my Daniel. I've not found anyone who treats me as good as he did. I have not found anyone who loved me even remotely close to how much he did. We went on a 4-month-long honeymoon, or what would have been a 4-month-long holiday if I hadn't ruined it. We had dated for 5 years, and my need to be intimate with other men had started 3 years in. I went on the holiday with the thought of being with someone else but him. I had fantasies of going at it in our honeymoon suite while my husband watched. I really became a real sick freak. There's always a nudge or a motivator to carry out diabolical things, and my motivation was named Tom. He was tall, standing at 6'5", and worked out regularly. He looked like a giant. His muscles were strong, and he always wore clothes that showed off the long hours he put in the gym. I was a pretty tall lady, and the men I lived and worked around were all either the same height as I am, or shorter, mind you. I am 6'1". So, you would understand why it made me shiver in my spine to find someone who made me feel small. He was a transfer to my workplace, and he was transferred straight above me in hierarchy, meaning I had to report to him daily. He was a 30-some years old man, and so was older than I and my husband, or should I say ex-husband. He was a very flirtatious person, soft-spoken like he was always trying to seduce you. Reporting to him every day was hard cause I had to keep professional whilst being real turned on by the little things he did. Then one day, he asked me to drinks with him. I couldn't really believe my ears. Was he hitting on me, or was he just being nice? Was he into me, or did he just notice how into him I was and thought he should capitalize on that? All these were the thoughts that ran through my head. I never even once thought of how my dear Daniel would feel, nor did I think much about hurting him. We went for drinks at a bar close to the office. I had drank a little more than respectable, and our conversation started to sway away form, getting to know one another to a conversations not suited for public hearing. I told him of how I wanted to do more, wanted to be more than just one man's woman. I told him how I know a lot of women would gladly trade places with me, but I just wanted a little bit of experience. I told him everything, from wanting to open up my marriage so that I could find sexual liberation without feeling guilty, down to me having a crush on him. He asked me if I've discussed with my husband, which I responded, yes, but he doesn't see things the way I see them, and he said he'd walk out if I did so. Tom then said something that resonated with my foolishness. I must admit now that then I was looking for anything that would relieve me of the responsibilities of my frivolities. I think you should stop saying it like you're asking him and start saying it like you're telling him. I think it's better he opened up the marriage for you to have your fun than for you to do things behind his back. I swear to fucking God, Tom was the epitome of bad decisions. He was the type of guy who gave the worst possible advice with an assurance that it would be best for you. Now I know that he only said those because he wanted to lay with me. That night, he made me feel like the queen of the universe. I know it was the same treatment I got from my Daniel every day, but getting that from a different man for the first time ever made me feel like a teenager again. We parted that day after sharing a kiss. I got home to my husband sleeping in the sitting room, probably from waiting so long for me to return from work. I waltzed in quietly, went in the bathroom to shower and brush my teeth so that I longer reeked of alcohol. I was still a little tipsy, but at a controllable level. I woke him up and told him I needed to speak to him about something. He told me he also had something to tell me, something exciting, he said, but he let me go first either way. He had a beautiful smile on his face as he attentively listened while I said my piece, a beautiful smile I saw fade away in seconds. I didn't mind though, because I already had it locked in my head that I was doing the right thing. I just want you to know that I'm going to have to do this. I would love it if I got your support. I don't think I can live with the fact that you're significantly more experienced than I am. It makes me feel like you had to settle with me. I don't want to be the girl that was a settlement. I want to be craved and worshipped by other men, just as you did with other women before you met me. I don't think I can be happy with this if I don't do this. We're opening the marriage, and it's not up for discussion. That was the bullshit I said to the only man who loved me when everyone called me a werned, nickname I got in uni, gotten from weird nerd. Those were the words I said to a man who literally made the nicknames go away. The man who made me get even a little bit of the attention I always thought I deserved. Those words remain edge deep in my mind, and now I cry every time I relive that situation. What sort of a dumbass young lady was I? He looked me in the eyes for a while, then bowed his head as though defeated. He sat there in silence for what seemed like an hour before saying, "Well, you've said your piece, so I guess that's that." He got up and went to the bedroom. As he left, I asked him what it was he wanted to tell me. He said it was nothing, and that he was tried from brainstorming too much at the office. The next day, I went straight into my boss's arms. We were intimate in his office that morning, and that was just the beginning of it all. Tom was just my first not Daniel intimate partner. I had many more. I would go out with the coworkers on Fridays at their regular TGIF spot and would occasionally wake up the next Saturday in the arms of a random person I had never met, nor did I ever meet after that day. I became a literal slut. My dear Daniel had to bear all this, so I thought. I knew it was a phase and that I'd grow out of it, but I didn't know the price I'd have to pay in order to gain enlightenment. I just kept playing around with different men every day or every other day. 2 months later, as I was getting ready for work, Tom came around my house. He was supposed to pick me up as I thought my husband would have been gone to his workplace early, as he always did. I thought I could use that opportunity to sneak in a few rounds before heading to the office together. My husband opened the door to Tom, who stood holding flowers in his hand. I couldn't hear what was said through the water running in my hair in the shower. I walked out to hear them exchanging pleasantries. Daniel even made a joke that went, so you're the guy that screws my wife while I screw the light bulbs? Daniel was never really one to show emotions, anger, pain, disappointment, sorrow. Nope, you can't get a read on him. The only thing you'd notice is a smile or a frown. So I honestly thought as he made those jokes that he was 100% okay with our marriage being open. He even went a step further by opening the door for me as I got in Tom's car. My naive young baby brain couldn't see the grave which I had dug for my marriage. On our way to the office, Tom made jokes of how well my husband seemed to be taking the open marriage deal. He made jokes about my husband possibly being a cuck and said things like, "Hey, if he wants to watch, that can be arranged." That day was a Friday, but unlike every other Friday in the past 2 months, I didn't go out with the coworkers. Rather, I and my boss, Tom, booked a hotel with glass windows and a good view of the city's nightlife. We had good sex that night. The Saturday after, I went home. Upon opening the door, I sensed a difference in the atmosphere. Everywhere was so quiet. My husband and I never worked Saturdays, so he always spent the morning playing his favorite songs on the speaker. Even when I wasn't home until early in the morning from working the previous night or from one of my flings, he still did play his songs full blast. I went into our built-in gym to find that he wasn't on the treadmill, as he almost always was on Saturdays. Then I went to the kitchen to see if he at least made coffee like he always did. I saw my favorite cup there on the kitchen counter. I smiled as I saw some semblance of the life we always had since we moved in together 3 years before our 2-year marriage. I lifted the cup to take a drink, but it was empty. I opened the cup only to find an enveloped letter. I can't really remember what was in the letter, but I still have it with me. I kept it as a reminder that I let something so beautiful go to shit because I wanted to have more bodies. I'm really disappointed in myself. I've made a lot of silly mistakes in my years, but letting Daniel go like that is the most stupid decision I made. I went and got the letter in the envelope. I left it in the cup which he placed it in, the cup which after 5+ years still smells like him in the insides. The note read, "Hey, hope you're doing good. I know you're probably wondering why you can't hear Smooth Criminal on the speakers right now. By the time you'd be reading this, I'd probably have reached SA. My company is hosting a 5-year program of producing the best computer-literate minds pit of Africa. And so, I would be spending the next 5 years living in South Africa. Don't worry, I still haven't forgotten about your infidelity. When I get back, we will get started on the divorce proceedings. I hope Tom's dick and the other dicks you hope it onto level the playing field was worth it. When you said that, I kind of thought you were joking, but yesterday proved to me that you weren't. I regret knowing you. If I could change anything in my life, I'd have left the first time you said no. You're really not worth the heartaches you've caused over the years, and I'm not gonna lie. I don't wish you well." Alongside the note was a flight ticket dated for that Saturday, June the 7th, 2014, and a passport, which was for me. At the back of the flight ticket was a note that read, "Remember the news I said I had 2 months ago? This was it. My company was going to sponsor both our stay in South Africa. They were also willing to give you a job." At the bottom of the cup was his wedding ring. My whole world came crashing down in front of me. I spent the rest of the day staring at the cup. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink anything. I just stared at the cup. What followed was a long year of depression as my world slowly started to fall apart. Starting with the next day when Elias, Tom's best friend and longest friend, came over to pick up all of Tom's belongings. I was crying my eyes out. I watched him and the movers he called move all of Tim's things, which had almost grown to have sentimental value to me. Elias, out of his own good heart, let me have a box of Tom's cologne and his favorite hoodie, only for him to come back the next day to get it. He walked in that day. I was still dressed in the outfit I went to work on Friday in. He practically dragged the hoodie out of my hands that day. I was weak from crying for over 24 hours. If not, I would have put up a fight. Elias looked angrily at me and said, "Stan Lee told me what you did. You're a disgrace to women worldwide, and I hope you regret this for the rest of your life." He then went in search of the cologne and grabbed them also. As he walked out of the house, he said, "If not for the laws of the country, I would have spat in your face. You see how this room is? That's how I hope your life ends up, sad and empty. Ella's was never really one to hold back. He always said things how he saw them, and also always made his intentions clearer. Whether he liked you or not, he'd say so in front of you. His words hurt me then, but they hurt more now, because since my precious half left me, the house has always been sad and empty. I tried to throw myself into something or someone, just to get my mind over losing my lover. Tom got transferred again, just a week after the incident, this time at his own request. I asked him why he asked for a transfer, stating that I thought we were building something, and he bluntly told me that he was moving away from me, that he had had his fun and it was time to move on. He also advised me to close my marriage with Tom before it was too late. Little did he know that it was already too late 1 week ago. My next boss was very strict. It didn't take long before I got queried for my mishaps due to being very unstable at the time and because I wasn't fucking him. It wasn't long before I got sacked. My parents divorced me. Elias had told them what happened. They were very religious people, and also were both ministers at the church I grew up going to. In their words, they didn't want to be associated with any prostitute who would throw her marriage down the drain, just so she could feel another man's hand running down her thighs. As for closer, I never got one. I kept my lines the same so that my Tom would reach out to me. The 5 years he said came and passed and nothing happened. He didn't even say a word, nor did I hear any news of him being back in the country. I tried to reach out to Elias only to find out that Elias had joined him in South Africa a year later. I started losing all my friends. It dawned on me that most of my friends only tolerated me. It dawned on me that the only good thing I had going on was being one half of the epic D couple. Found out I wasn't funny, that I wasn't even nice to be around. I found out that I could be a very unbearable person to be around. All these things knocked me down below ground level. After Elias left me, I didn't just go back to square one, I was knocked below negative. Now in 2023, I'm 36 and almost 10 years later, I've never had any relationship past the initial 3 months. I fucking hate my life right now and I wish I could just pass peacefully in my sleep. I blame Daniel sometimes for leaving me just like that. I hope that any lady who's thinking of opening up their marriages see this and steer clear of that dreadful mistake of an idea. I'm still hoping that one day I'd be walking down the road and see Daniel. I want to apologize, to tell him that I've not moved on, and that even though 10 years had passed, I still loved him. I want to tell him how hurting was the worst thing I ever did, that I wanted to build a new life with him. My dating life has also gone to shit. Nobody wants to be with the lady who shattered the heart of her husband just because they wanted to explore something different. I've been in several relationships, but whenever the story comes up, you could literally see the love leave the faces of these men. I still live in the house Daniel and I bought together. It's a small bungalow because we wanted a small family. I really need closure and bad. I really need his forgiveness. I need your help finding solace as I can't afford therapy because I haven't been able to hold down a job since I got sacked 10 years ago by my replacement boss. I've been bouncing. Thank you for reading through this rather long narrative. Update. This update is based on what has happened since I posted this 2 months ago. For those who didn't see the previous post, this is an update on how my husband, or ex-husband, depending on how you view things, left me when I decided I was going to open up our marriage. It has been over 9 years since he left, and in those years, I have seen how I am literally nothing without him. I lost everyone who was close to me, mostly because they adored him and we were only around me because they had to. Well, for the first time since he left, things have started to change for the better. First of all, I think he saw the previous post, because not so long after I posted here, he called me. I was happy to hear his voice after such a long time. I missed that raspy baritone of his that always vibrated my body. We talked for hours and I cried. Just listening to how much I hurt him really did a number on me. He said he didn't believe I was going to do something like that. He said he initially thought it was one of my late April Fool's pranks. He said a part of him died when he saw and had that conversation with Tom. He said he felt like a cuck, and that was mad at himself for staying until I broke him. He told me why he decided not to come back after the initial 5 years. He said that it took him the whole time to get over me, that at the end of the program he had started to be happy again. He said he didn't want to see me again because being in the same room with me would jeopardize his happiness. I, in turn, told him how my life had gone. Throughout what seemed like a 2-hour conversation on the phone, I cried. We talked about the good old days, and I cried because I really let this man go. At the end of the conversation, he told me he would be in the US in a week, and that he would come see me in the house. He did come to the house in a week's time. He came to drop off the divorce papers. He saw how miserable I was in the house. He saw the cup with the letter and his ring still at the bottom. He saw how the rooms which he emptied remain empty, even almost 10 years later. For the first time since I had known him, I was finally able to get a read on his emotions. Pity. I saw pity in his eyes. He asked me about my life, and I told him more things that I hadn't already told him over the phone. He asked about Tom, calling him tall, ugly, buff man. I told him how things went, how Tom came, slept with me for 2 months and left. He kissed his teeth, something he had probably learned from his time in Africa. He shook his head and said, "So 2 months of sex was what you threw a 7-year relationship out the window for?" Then he asked me how the sex was. In all honesty, I have never had someone who treated me better than Daniel did in bed. He knew me in and out and knew how to get me where I wanted to be. He wasn't like all the other guys who simply wanted to come and go. I was sad to admit that I had thrown everything that made me who I was, just for something Daniel even did better than all the other 14 men I had slept with along the line. In his pity, he offered to pay for me to get therapy. He said he had moved on and that I also deserved to move on too. He made me feel like the world revolved around me, one last time. Then he left. We have now finalized the divorce, and I'm 1 month into the therapy sessions, all thanks to Daniel. I thank God for the perfect gift of a man that he brought along my way, and I still hate myself for ruining it. Although now it's time to focus on being a better human. It only took me 36 years. I thank you guys again for reading this. I hope nothing else would occur to make me want to come back to this. I hope now that I can finally move on.